Super Saturday brings two cracking affairs, and the first of which is a North Indian derby. I'm talking about Punjab taking on Rajasthan. There's plenty to play for, especially those two precious points. So we have WB Raman in the house. Don't go anywhere because you want to watch this show. Yes, guys, my name's Avni Shagde, watching cricket.com, and as ever, we have fantastic experts on our show, and one of them is WB Raman, the former head coach of the women's cricket team. WB, how are we this afternoon?
Yeah, trying to find ways and means to beat the heat. Obviously, you know how it can be in Chennai, so really got to do something to try and ease the heat here.
Yeah, it's all about hydration, of course, so get those plenty of supplements in, because at the end of the day, watching cricket is about tiring because the games are coming thick and fast. And here we are to discuss the Punjab-Rajasthan game. We'll start with Punjab because every time they give you a sense of thumping the opposition, they can't go on and do that again in back-to-back matches. Can they actually win two on the trot this time around?
Why not? Because I think more or less their approach is settled a bit, because they realize that they need to try and accelerate after getting off to a solid start, whereas they were trying a different approach altogether towards the start of the tournament, which did not work for them. Looks like they've realized that somebody has to play an anchor role. It could be Shikhar Dhawan or it could be Mayank Agarwal if the situation demands, because they got good big hitters around them to try and up the tempo. So that being the case, I think it is possible for them to win. They got a good bowling attack too.
If you're Anil Kumble and company, would you want to be chasing or defending?
Now that they got hold of a formula that works for them in their batting, I would rather chase, because then they know what to do. Because batting first, what has happened is that they did not get a decent target when they batted first. So that being the case, I would rather prefer chasing, because then everybody is aware what needs to be done. And they also have the firepower, as I said earlier, which means that even if it is a case of getting about 13-14 towards the end of the innings, I think their big hitters can manage it. So chasing would be a better option for them.
Okay, and the venue also has to be taken into consideration. This one comes from the Wankhede, of course, where there's been good amount of success batting first, but let's see how that unfolds. Let's, of course, go into some of the players, and I want to, of course, ask you about Shikhar Dhawan, because you touched upon it in one of the earlier shows that he needs to be the anchor, and he's been showing that, especially in the last couple of games. How important is it now for the others to start chipping in, given the fact that they need to make a real fist for the playoffs?
It's important because they got some explosive batters, Livingston, Rajapaksa, and then you also have Shah Rukh Khan. He needs to come into the side. You also got Bairstow at the top of the order. Bairstow needs to keep, as far as I'm concerned. That will bring in Shah Rukh Khan into the 11, so which will add a lot more depth into the Kings 11 batting. So if you bolster your batting, and then if you get your batting order right, role allocation right, and they prefer to chase, I think they're a good chance of winning games.
Okay, now we've not completely got a confirmation of this, but I'm just second guessing here. Rahul Chahar, of course, got that finger injury in the last game. If he misses out, is that a big blow to their bowling attack?
Yes, it will be, because primarily leg spinners have done well, and Rahul Chahar is one feisty character. He is one spinner who has a big heart, which means he doesn't mind bowling during any phase of the innings. That's one quality they'll miss if he's not available to play. But these are things that happen. There's nothing much you can do about it, especially on-field injuries. There's nothing anybody can do about it. You got to endure it. That's all you'll have to do. So which means they'll have to find the best bowling option, or whether even if it means that they have to resort to replacing him with a medium pacer, they need to do it.
Okay, fingers crossed they'll be sweating over his fitness. But let's move on to Rajasthan then, because the last two games, 2 defeats, that due to the teams are kind of languishing at the bottom of the table in KKR and MI. Was it a reality check of sorts for them, WB?
Yes, these setbacks are good, because it will make them realize that they're not invincible. It will also make them buck up, and all the players in the side will realize that they can't be riding just on Butler. Starting from their captain Sanju Samson, they need to try and get their act together and get on with the game and perform. Sanju Samson needs to reverse the trend that we've seen in all these earlier IPLs. He needs to get runs towards the second half of the IPL. It's very critical here because they've done extraordinarily well until now. For them to go on to the knockout and then probably go on to have a good shot at the title, they need Sanju Samson and the rest to fire. And they also need to play 4 foreigners in the 11, which means that Mitchell needs to bat higher up the order. And that will obviously give them enough as far as batting is concerned. So it's important that they try and get the right combination out onto the field and then ensure that each and everybody pulls their weight.
Yeah, you mentioned Daniel Mitchell batting up higher up the order, but what about Shimron Hetmyer, who of course has been packing a punch? Have they kind of underutilized him and maybe him to be propelled up at number 4, you think?
Mitchell is a guy who takes his time, who gives himself a chance. He needs some sighters. He's that kind of a batter. So, which means that once he gains in confidence, he's a guy who will play a lot of explosive shots. But he's not one who can walk in and then play shots. Whereas Hetmyer is capable of doing that. It doesn't matter to him. And I think obviously the role that is allocated to him is to try and be the player who can get 15 runs and over whenever required. And that's the role that he's been given by the management. And he's done it well. He's shown that it doesn't matter, regardless of whether he's up against the paces or the spinners or even up against the situation at times. He's done a good job of it.
Okay. Now remember, Rajasthan spinners were off colour in their last game against KKR. But I want to ask you about Joss Buttler, of course, who also kind of didn't have the best outings the last time out. The question begs then, if he can go on to beat Virat Kohli's record in 2016. I think he's 385 runs away, which is still a huge margin. What's your gut feel, WV? You think Joss the boss can beat Virat?
It's a lot to catch up, first thing. And secondly, obviously stating the obvious, if at all anybody can have a crack at that record, is Joss Buttler, because he's got off to a good start. And he's also got that psychological advantage, because the bowlers will always be a little bit apprehensive when they come up against him, because he's been really in good nick. And what he's done well also is that he's paced his innings well. He's just not looked to play shots from the time he takes guard. He's given himself some time, maybe 2-3 overs, and then he explodes, which means that he's very, very sure of what it is he wants to do. There's a method, and that method has worked wonderfully well for him.
Yeah, it's of course paying off dividends for Rajasthan Royals. So let's see how that motor's on. Right, predictions then. It's an afternoon encounter. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. Who are you siding with in this one? Rajasthan or Punjab?
Let's go for Punjab.
Okay, lovely. Lovely enthusiasm as well there. Punjab Kings it is from WE's side. And who knows, it could be Punjab who beat Rajasthan and make it all the more interesting heading into those playoffs. Catch it all on cricket.com. We'll be there. And of course, we'll see you shortly in the second game on Saturday. Don't go anywhere.